Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss The Creator, starring John David Washington, Madeline Yuna Voiles, Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, and Allison Janney, directed by Gareth Edwards. Now, before I get into this, there's a couple things I gotta bring up. One, I have reviewed Godzilla, the 2014 version that he directed, and of course Rogue One. And two, this is supposed to be his original film, so let's see if this is still remains the case, if it's supposed to be original as a sci-fi movie. So let's get into the movie. In a world where robots go AI, aka artificial intelligence, against the human race, and the year is 2065, as Joshua Taylor, played by John David Washington, is on an island with Maya, played by Gemma Chan, in New Asia, and she's carrying his baby as he's undercover, and his cover gets blown by some unwelcome humans led by Nomad taking over the island, and Maya finds out he's undercover and leaves him by going on a boat without him, and Joshua is led to believe she's dead in the next 5 years. When this movie is taking place, and this opener is like, as I like, for how beautiful the island is, and the performances are good in this movie. And the fact that robots are taking over a planet is an interesting concept, and it is a great looking movie throughout, as the cinematography is great to look at. And kudos to director Gareth Edwards and the cinematographers Greg Fraser, and Oren Saffer, for making this movie look great. We move on to the year 2070, and Joshua lost his arm as he has nightmares about the events from the last scene, as this scene was reminding me of Avatar, as the guy who was undercover to convince the robots he's one of them. And that didn't feel too original in my mind. In Ground Zero in Los Angeles, where they crush the robots, as it's been 15 years since the AI began the war between robots and humans, so-called Americans. While Joshua dreams about Maya, and I did like how he dreams of the woman he is in love with, Joshua is approached by General Andrews and Colonel Howell, played by a very unrecognizable Allison Janney, and they recruit Joshua to do a mission to destroy a weapon because he sees Maya is alive, and this almost felt a little familiar, and I didn't mind in any way necessary, and everybody in this movie is giving a good performance in my opinion. Joshua and the Jarheads, led by Howell, arrive to New Asia to look for a new weapon while they find some farmers and interrogate them and almost kill a dog, which made me super nervous until Joshua saves Doggy's life by finding a hiding place of the weapon. And I was like, whew, when the doggy didn't get killed by the Jarheads, and they look and they look towards the weapon while Joshua looks for Maya and joins up with the Jarheads, and they get encountered by the police, and Joshua does find the weapon, and as it's a kid named Alfie, played by Madeline Yuna Voiles, who was really good in this movie, as she may be the best performer in the movie in my opinion. An elderly lady tells Alfie to run, and as she does, and Joshua escapes and looks for Maya, and he gets knocked down in the action sequences that started in the last segment and ends on this segment was pretty good, as it kind of excited me. Joshua wakes up on a boat and sees Alfie staring at him, being a weirdo, and finds a fellow Jarhead, Shipley? Yeah, Shipley, and puts him in the building as Alfie turns on the TV with her powers, which will be explained later in the movie. As Howell tells Joshua to kill the kid, and Howell gets captured by some robots, and Joshua sees a drawing from Alfie and asks where she saw the image. And some robot almost killed Joshua, but he shoots the robot dead and asks Alfie where she saw the image. And as the police gets nearby, Joshua tells Alfie to get in the car, and the police almost blow them up with a grenade until a dog comes in and saves their lives. And honestly, I thought the dog would be their companion for the rest of the movie. For the rest of the movie, but it didn't turn out that way, which I was okay with. While it was funny when Howell and another jarhead beat up the police and turns around and says, I made the wrong turn after flipping the car over, and that made me laugh. And I'm liking the connection between Joshua and Alfie. Joshua learns Alfie speaks English because at first she didn't, and Joshua asks for help by a family in a farm truck to get help from to get to a friend of his in the city. Meanwhile, Howell and another jarhead asks Shipley where they're at, and says Joshua has it, and Joshua and Alfie are on the run and get stopped by police in search of Joshua and Alfie turns off the power and turns it back on with her hands. And they escape, and the rest of the family on the truck is never brought up again while they go on a bus to the city of Alfie learning about Joshua in heaven. And I do like these scenes for the chemistry between Joshua and Alfie, as it works great. Joshua has a dream of how his friend Drew gives him a ring to propose to Maya at some point in the mission, and they get to the city where they meet Drew, and his assistant gets Alfie ice cream, and the special effects look pretty damn good. In this movie, is the robot head looked real, but that's how good these effects are. But am I the only one that thinking from the beginning of the movie that Alfie was Joshua's kid? Because Maya was pregnant at one point in the beginning of the movie, but because I most certainly did. The police come to the apartment where Drew's assistant babysits her and gets her ice cream and blow it up to protect Alfie from Joshua, and Joshua saves the kid, but Drew lost his assistant, and Howell comes in with the jarhead, as they call the cavalry, while Joshua, Alfie, and Drew try to find Maya in an abandoned place. And Alfie gets to Joshua and asks where Maya is, and Drew gets shot dead. And I felt bad for Drew as he tells him the robot god Nirmata isn't the father, it's Joshua. I swear I knew that was the case from the beginning of the movie. And Joshua and Alfie bump into his old friends led by Harun, played by Ken Watanabe, and they knocked him out as they explained how Joshua met Maya at a bar and how they are as a couple, and I like the way it was told in this movie. Harun almost kills Joshua until something happens out of the blue in the sea, and Alfie saves his life so he can find Maya and almost get killed by Harun, but he gets in the water and hangs on the ropes, and they get to the robot island, as it felt depressing as the robots were killed, and that's what the call was at one point in the previous scene, as it makes perfect sense now, as does this movie. Joshua grabs Alfie from Harun, but by putting Harun on standby, and they get out safely until they get under attack by American military led by Howell, who puts a couple of bombs on the island to blow them up, while Alfie gets off the boat, and Joshua hides in the water to climb the bridge, and Alfie stops the second bomb from exploding, and the jarhead shoots her down, and Joshua helping her and getting her out of the explosion, and becomes one of them, and that was a gripping scene as it was intense. They get the child to a mountain where they can heal her, and they talk with Joshua about how Maya was in a coma, and Alfie lays with her, and Joshua wants Maya to wake up, but they have no choice but to pull the plug on Maya, and are both sad about it, which is depressing, and Nomad finds them, and Howell comes in, and we learn she lied about Maya being alive, and Harun shoots Howell, and Harun getting killed, and Howell exploding, and Harun gets up, and I'm thinking, what the hell? Because I thought he was dead, and the military takes Joshua and Alfie and split them up, which did feel like an Avatar when they blow up the tree of the Na'vi, and that didn't feel too original. They take them back to Los Angeles with General Andrews and forces Joshua to make Alfie stand by, as the audience is led to believe she's dead, but the truck flips with Joshua and Alfie escaping, and they get on a plane to the moon, and General Andrews orders the planes not to come to Nomad, and Alfie forces the plane to go towards them. They arrive, and as they arrive to Nomad and get the military out of the Nomad station, and they split up with Alfie going to the power room and turning the power off of Nomad for her mother, while Joshua stops the missiles from going down and puts a 10-minute bomb on the missiles, and Alfie sees Maya in a body bag and puts her in the garden area while Joshua can't breathe until Alfie brings him to the escape pod, and the military almost kills Alfie until Joshua gets one of the legs of a thing that looks like a robotic octopus and fights with Joshua, and Nomad blows up as the missiles don't blow up South Asia, and Joshua has no choice but to get Alfie out of the escape pod and stays alive while Joshua goes to heaven with Maya next to him in the garden area as the war between humans and robots is over and everybody is free. And the climax was a spectacular way to show a sci-fi movie that seemed like a little like Avatar, but it has its own spin, whereas Avatar is like the Disney version of Pocahontas. And I like the spin as it was, at the end of the day, interesting, as this was an interesting movie. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 8.2 out of 10. It has an interesting concept, and it is a great looking movie with a good performance by everyone in this movie. Even the kid was really good in this movie, although there were things that felt a little familiar, like Avatar, at one point while watching the movie, but I didn't mind in any way necessary. The chemistry between Joshua and Alfie worked great, and I really liked how well they worked together. And the effects look pretty damn good in this movie, as the robots have a hole in their head that did kind of look real. That's how good the effects looked, in my opinion. This is a great looking movie from start to finish, as I had a good time with it, and kudos to director Gareth Edwards and the cinematographer Greg Fraser and Oren Sofar, I don't know if I said that right, please forgive me, for making this movie look great, and I'm going to give this movie a solid recommendation, as it was an interesting movie. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for leading from monsters to this movie, and until whenever Gareth Edwards comes up with another story, let's not play with the bomb.